right, hello from Brazil, specifically Curitiba. I'm here staying with some friends. I'm here for about a month, mostly to focus on a few work projects and just practice my Portuguese. The flight was free because I had points, and the exchange rate right now is spectacular. I figured I'd come down here and just kind of hang out and enjoy the warm weather while it's absolutely freezing cold in Utah. And while I was down here, a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, invited me to go with her to take ayahuasca. And I'm I like to do research. I like to really look into things before I do them, especially something like ayahuasca. And I wanted to create this video for people who might be interested in ayahuasca and trying it but aren't really sure. I wanted to explain how it was for me and give maybe a few tips. So, a little bit of context, backstory. I was raised LDS, or Mormon as some might know it. I actually served my mission here in Curitiba, which is why I have friends down here. And so I do have some experience with psychedelics. I've taken magic mushrooms a few times legally, and also cannabis a decent amount legally. And so, I've had some experience with, psychedelics, I guess you could say, and having a little bit of like mind-altering experiences, but ayahuasca was, it's going to be hard for me to explain, but it was so significantly more powerful than anything I had ever experienced. Blew my mind, literally, but thankfully not completely. um, as far as backstory, I guess that's about it. My good friend, she goes once a month, which is crazy. She has gone to a few different places, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, about the different places you can go. And she's found this one that she really likes, and so she invited me to come along, and I did. Before I did, I'll get into that. So, what was it like? I had expectations and maybe you could also say hopes for what it would be like, and it definitely was much more than what I was expecting. Um, it definitely depends on where you go, who's making the ayahuasca, because it's a brew. It's basically a tea that they mix different ingredients. It depends on a lot of factors, and it also just depends on you. It depends on your state of mind. It depends on your heart and where you're at that day. It's always different. Even if you go to the same exact place and take the exact same amount, it is, and this is what I hear from everybody there, it is always a different experience. Sometimes it's a very wonderful thing. Sometimes it's horrendous. And I kind of knew that going into it. For me, the experience was very validating and clarifying. It was difficult many times, and it was also glorious many times. Little bit about what it was like. The place is kind of it's hard because I speak Portuguese, and so a lot of the words are kind of hard to translate into English, but it's basically like a farm area. It's kind of way out in the jungle, if you will, and this older couple has built this, I guess you could call it a sanctuary, and it was very well organized, which kind of caught me off guard. It was, seemed kind of like a church, and it wasn't this like strange, just random group of weirdos that were, tripping. I mean, it was like a pretty orderly and organized event. And my computer's going to sleep here. There's all these beds and your name's on it, everything, and anyway, it was kind of caught me off guard a little bit with how well put together it was. And it is a ceremony, the way they structure it, and I actually really liked that, and that's a big reason why I ended up doing it, was because I felt good about the place, I felt good about the people, I felt good about the madrina, the lady running it, basically. Um, and yeah, so they give you 2 doses, and you can pick a small cup or a big cup. And I picked the small cup, kind of the regular size, if you will. And they give you the first dose, which is a lower dose, in that it's not as potent and strong. And so it's meant to get you in sort of a Zen state, which it very much did. I was, feeling very good and already having these interesting thoughts and perspectives on life and on different things that I am going through. And then they give you the second dose, and I think, my guess, it was maybe an hour and a half into the first dose that they give you the second dose. The first dose we got at about 3 o'clock. Then they give you the second dose, and the second dose is potent, and it hits you hard. I remember I started really feeling it, and I was laying down on the bed, and all in the room were all these different images. I really like this about this place, that it's focused on God, but not any denomination. So there's images of Jesus, there's images of Buddha, there's images of sacred geometry, there's saints, there's crystals, I mean, everything, which is kind of cool. And I remember looking and noticing, I was like, oh, and I saw these images, and they were swirling and glowing and growing and coming off the wall. And that was when I was like, whoa, this is strong stuff. And it really started to hit me. And it was strange, because I was having significant effects, both with my eyes closed, but also with my eyes open. And it didn't really matter. You couldn't really get away from it. And it was very, very strong. It's hard to explain, but it definitely was a little scary because of how strong it was. I remember thinking, like, this is too much. I got too much, and I even asked a few people. I asked my friend, I was like, is this normal, and she gave me that answer of, like, it just depends. It depends on the person. It depends on where they're at. It depends on the day. It depends on also the music. They were playing loud music that actually was, I hated it at the beginning because it was so loud, but it actually helped to guide you through this journey. And there's different songs, and I actually talked with the lady for a little while, and she really spends a lot of time and energy to pick a really solid custom playlist to guide you through. And so, at the beginning it's a little more light and kind of meditative and whatever, and then in the middle of it, it's like this trance chanting, intense, meant to, like, really help you work through things. And then it kind of goes back into more easy stuff towards the end. But it was intense, and I was having a lot of thoughts, a lot of experiences, I guess you could call it. Just, I remember watching the people in the room, and it was as if they were not necessarily possessed, but that they were elevated, if you will. One of the ladies just was blowing my mind, because the way she was, like, up and moving around and moving her hands, and she was like, there was a fireplace with a big fire going, and she was, like, doing stuff with the fire. And I remember just being blown away, because I had never experienced or seen anything like it. And so it was scary. And anyway, overall, as far as what it was like, it was good. It was very intense. Frankly, I don't think I'll ever do it again. But I could see how it's, my friend loves it. She even said that time, just this past Friday with me, was one of the best times she's ever had going, where she felt it's for her a way to connect with with God, with the earth, with herself. And so it's a very healing and helpful process for her. And so I can see how, for some people it really is a thing that they kind of latch onto, but I could see how for others like myself it's more of a kind of one and done type deal. Anyway, I'm happy to answer more questions in the comments. I'll now get into my tips that I have for people who are looking to do it. The first would be people/place. I think the people you're with are really important. I was very fortunate to have a very good friend that I trust there with me. It's very much an individual thing. You're kind of supposed to stay in your lane and focus on yourself, because you will see other people having a very difficult time, throwing up or dealing with demons, fighting their own internal whatever. I mean, you'll see other people struggling. And my friend told me, she's like, you're supposed to just leave them alone, And the nice thing about this place is that there were people there to watch over those going through it. And the lady running it, I could tell she has a strong spirit, and she is very experienced, and was definitely keeping an eye on everybody. She'd do rounds and just keep an eye, and sometimes if there was a person who needed a hug or needed some words of wisdom, this place and these people did a very good job. So you definitely I would recommend do a little research as to where you're going. I would recommend, if you can, going with a friend. So definitely, would recommend making sure that you're going to a good place with good people. As had I not, my experience would have been traumatic. Second tip is breathe/move. The main thing is to just focus on your breathing. And there were many times where I was getting overwhelmed, and I would just, just breathe. And I would just focus on my breathing, and just breathing for me was kind of like you just keep going. Because it's like, it's going to be over, and you got to keep that in your mind. And also I kept thinking, I chose this. I put myself here, so let's get through it, And so breathing, and they'll hopefully instruct you on that, in through your nose, maybe hold it a little bit, and then slowly out through your mouth. And that really helped me several times to kind of get through whatever difficult thing I was facing. And moving, sometimes people just kind of get stuck, and so it's easy to be lying in your bed just going through it and struggling. And some places, my friend was telling me that one of the places she used to go to, they wouldn't let you out of the room. You were stuck. You couldn't even get up. You're supposed to just stay in your bed, which I'm very glad that the place I went to was the exact opposite. They have a very big room, but then you can go outside. They have a big bonfire going. And so there was a time where kind of really, when it was taking effect and it was getting to be intense, I was overwhelmed. There were people who were having a really hard time throwing up. There were people who were gyrating and moving all weird, and it just was like chaos. And I remembered, I was like, I have to move. And so I got up and I went outside, and I was able to just breathe the fresh air and kind of get back into my own mind and focus on just continuing forward. Being outside was incredible. Watching other people, but then the stars were extraordinary. I mean, it's kind of like how it's portrayed in the movies or shows or whatever. I mean, I'm always looking at the stars. I love astrophotography, so I'm always chasing stars and eclipses and whatever. I have never ever experienced anything remotely like ayahuasca, and I mean, everything was connected, and I was seeing shooting stars everywhere, and the clouds were all swirling. I mean, it was magical. It was very, very cool. And also to be kind of out and away from the city, away from the noise, in the trees. It was really, really cool. So it's definitely good if you're able to get up and move. If you're having a hard time. Some people like to get up and dance. Some people were playing the bongos or whatever. And at first I was really kind of annoyed by it, but I learned to really actually like it. There was one guy next to me that was just like softly playing the drums as I was by the fire, and it was awesome. It was so cool, and kind of changed my mind a little bit on, it's kind of like stereotypical, the guy who's at a party playing guitar, like typically just kind of annoying douchebags who are a bit narcissistic. But like, you could tell that these people weren't doing it out of like, hey, look at me, oh, I'm so cool playing. No, it was like an extra little way to kind of make the experience a little more special. Kind of hard to explain, but anyway, breathe and move. Third one is prep. I would definitely recommend to anybody considering doing ayahuasca to spend time preparing yourself physically and mentally. Physically, I would definitely recommend, as this place did to me, to kind of eat more light foods as you're preparing. They recommend avoiding red meat and any really heavy things. I would definitely, for the at least like 2 days before, eat much lighter foods to kind of prepare your stomach. And also your mind. I think there's plenty of religions that also preach similar things, as does the LDS religion with the word of wisdom. So yeah, any sort of strong medications or substances that you take, just stop and kind of almost like a fast, but don't complete. You could, I guess, fast and just do water, but I would definitely try to wean down your or any sort of strong substances or foods to prepare yourself. Mentally, just kind of up to you, but I would avoid stressful situations and really just kind of try to like meditate and prepare yourself for a very, very strong experience. So definitely would spend some time preparing. I watched a lot of YouTube videos. I watched a documentary on YouTube that I will link in the description that was probably the deciding factor for me as to why I decided that I am going to do this, because it actually is a really well put together documentary. And there were several things that I heard in there that I was like, oh my gosh, this is kind of what I've been looking for, And so I'll link that. I would definitely recommend watching that. I'm glad I did it. It was very, very intense. And as I said, it was more so kind of a validating and clarifying experience. Maybe to close, I'll kind of talk a little bit more on that. There was a certain time where, I struggle with pretty significant ADHD, and a few other things like I've got this chronic sleep disorder that I've taken Ambien. I've done thousands of dollars in doctor visits and tests and whatever, and I just still have a very big problem with sleep. So I've got several things that I was wanting to really kind of focus on, and I just, my brain is like, it's hard to describe, is always kind of on overdrive. I am an extremely observant person, and so I always get really tired because my brain is processing so much more than the average person. And so I think that because of that, my brain tends to kind of get this just like ball of wire, if you will, and it sometimes is just a lot. And my experience in ayahuasca, there literally was a time where it kind of envisioned that my mind had opened up, like right here, like a flower. Specifically, the flower I was seeing was a lotus flower, and it was like everything was just so crisp and clear, instead of like this like constant mental struggle. It just became clear, and yeah, it's hard to describe, but it was very cleansing. Kind of the main thing I took afterwards was this cleansing effect. It felt like the cobwebs and barnacles of not only my brain but sort of my soul and body were gotten rid of. I did throw up, which if you take ayahuasca, if you're familiar with it, if you've been studying it, is considered to be a very good thing, a very cleansing thing. and it definitely felt like that for me. Um, and yeah, there was something else, but overall it was good. I don't have any desire, at least now, to do it again. Um, it yeah, it was intense. It was very, very intense, and so I would recommend that people don't just, sure, I'll go do it. That they have the desire, and that they spend time preparing, and researching, making sure you're going to a good place, ideally with somebody else, and just remembering it when you do it, those key things of breathing, moving around, and remembering that it's a journey, and that you're gonna get through it and you'll be okay. So anyway, I thought I would share my experience, mostly for those who are like me, who are wanting to kind of like, or nervous, and don't really know what they're getting themselves into. I thought I would share what I learned for others. So, like I said, if you have any questions or comments or anything, please share them in the comments. And yeah, have a good day. See you later.